Hallelujah, amen. Look how I made it out the basement. Look till he ballin' like Will Chamberlain. High stove, cook up the dough.
What's up, Rock Church? We want to invite you guys to go ahead and stand up and worship with us.
There's honey in the rock, water in the stone, manna on the ground, no matter where I go. I don't need to worry now that I know everything I need you've got. There's honey in the rock. Praying for a miracle, thirsty for the living well. Only you can satisfy
the darkness falls in because the God I serve knows only how to triumph. My God will never fail. My God will never fail. I'm gonna see victory. I'm gonna see victory. The battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. The battle belongs to you, there's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war he wages, he will win. Oh, I'm not backing down from any giants. I know how this story ends. I know how this story ends. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Turn it forward. Turn it forward. You take the enemy meant for evil. Turn it forward. Turn it forward. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. The victory's his. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For could sing this song as I often do, but every song must end, and you have to. So throw up my hands. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I've nothing else fit for a king except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. I've got one response. I've got just one move. With my arms stretched wide, I will worship you. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, a hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I've nothing else fit for a king except for my heart singing So come on, my soul, oh, don't you get shy on me, lift up your song, 'cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. So get up and praise the Lord. So come on, my soul, oh, don't you get shy on me, lift up your song, 'cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. So get up and praise the Lord. Come on, my soul, oh, don't you get shy on me, lift up your song, 'cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. So get up and praise the So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, a hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I've nothing else fit for a king except for a heart singing hallelujah. Let's sing that out again. I throw up my hands. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, a hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but nothing else fit for a king except for a heart singing hallelujah.
Jesus, that's all we got. We're just giving it over to you. Praising you, worshiping you, celebrating you. And Lord, as we continue on tonight, we pray that you're just so clear and transparent to us, and helping us understand what we need to do and what our next steps are. So we love you. Amen. You guys can go ahead and grab a seat. Man, it is great to see everybody this evening. And before we get into anything else, let's just take a second and celebrate all those baptisms that we saw over Easter weekend, right? So cool to see so many people making that decision to go from death to life. That's a major mile marker for them. That is a life-changing thing. If you've taken that step, you know that is something that you will hold on to for the rest of your life, and you can think back to that moment and hold on to that. So, man, I'm so excited for all those people that took that step. And man, we're praying for that for everybody, that they do take those steps, that they do take that step of engagement, that do make that decision that, hey, I'm going to choose to symbolically go from death to life, to follow Jesus with everything that I have. And there's a lot of ways that we try to help people find what matters that way here at The Rock. But one of the things that I want to talk about just real quick before we get into anything else is This Gen Conference. If you don't know, This Gen Conference is what we call our high school summer camp and our middle school summer camp. And those dates are coming up soon. It's going to be the biggest, best year that we've ever had. And really for our This Gen team, it is our Super Bowl. And what we end up seeing is more students taking steps of response and taking steps of faith that week than any other week of the year. So we just are so excited about it. And if you have a student, if you are a parent, or if you are a student, you want to get signed up, man, I'd really encourage you to do so. And if you're like, how do I do that? Well, right out there in the lobby, you can go out there. There's these little cards. Scan the QR code on there. It'll take you to a website where you can sign up and register. And we would love for you, your family, to be a part of this, to experience this, to find what matters this year. And we got some special things that we're going to announce probably next week regarding signing up for This Gen Conference. But, man, really wanted to push that right now just because I do believe it is such a powerful week for our students. And I think it's a great time to have that conversation because this new series that we are in is going to be a game changer. I really do believe it is something that so many people need to hear. And how tonight's going to go is our lead pastor, Fink, he's going to kick it off for us via video, and I'll come up in just a little bit to talk about some application points on the back end of this. So go ahead, check this out, and I'll be back up in just a moment. Thanks, guys.
Well, hello, Rock Church, man. It is so good to see you today. I want to welcome everybody to church, all right? And whether you're in Conway, Ainer, South Strand, J. Reuben, online, wherever you might be tuning in from or joining in from, man, thank you for being here. And especially if you're new with us, we want to welcome you to The Rock. And I hope that you've taken a chance to stop by our New Here tent or our Connect wall, just to get connected. We'd love just to get to know you a little bit more, tell you a little bit about the church, and just really help you find your place. You know, one thing we always say here at The Rock is we want to help everybody find what matters, and we believe that happens best when you connect with Jesus and you connect with others. So we've spent some time in worship already connecting with Jesus, and now we're going to try to do so a little bit more as we dive into his word, but we also definitely want to encourage you to connect with others. All right, now, and then one other thing before I get started, can we just celebrate all that God did during Easter weekend at The Rock? I mean, come on now. I mean, it was a phenomenal weekend. People took the step of baptism, got connected. I know many of you had the take-home treasure map with your kids, and I just hope that was a great experience for everybody. So I want to thank our Rock staff for what they've done, but also for all of you VIPs, whether you served in the parking lot or in coffee or band or production or kids or wherever it might have been. thank you for serving and helping people find what matters. All right, now, well, we're going to jump into a new series. And this new series, it's got a lot of words to it, okay? The new series is actually called, What Are You Going to Do With Your Life? And the series comes from a book that J.D. Greer, who's a pastor in North Carolina, that he wrote, and I read a couple years ago, and I was just like, wow, this is an incredible book. And so I wanted to bring it as a series. So for the next 4 weeks, we're really going to dive into it, but I feel like the only way to really start is maybe to ask you that question. What are you going to do with your life? And I know some of you are like, I'm tired of being asked, right? Some of you are like, I'm tired of wondering. It's actually something that we all wonder about. Like when we're kids, we're like, well, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to be an athlete, or I'm going to be a movie star, or I'm going to be a fireman, or I'm going to be a superhero. Like we dream like that as a kid. Today's kids, that you think of things like, I'm going to be a YouTube celebrity, or I'm going to be a TikTok influencer. Like these are real things that we either do dream about or did dream about. And then reality hits, right? Like it just hits, and we're just like, okay, well, I wanted to be an NBA star, and I'm 5'6", or I wanted to be a musician, but I got no ability, right? Like reality hits, and then you start adulting, and then you start like getting close to adulting, and everybody asks you this question. Like some of you are seniors in high school right now, or juniors in high school, and everybody's saying, hey, have you started thinking about college yet? Or are you going to work once you get out of high school? Like, what are you going to do with your life? And you're just like, leave me alone. Like those of you who are college students, people immediately ask, so what are you going to major in? Undecided for the 15th time, right? I'm going to change my major because I just can't decide what I want to do with my life. And then some of you are getting close to maybe graduation, and people are saying, all right, so what's next? Do you have a job? Where are you moving to? What are you doing? And you're just like, leave me alone. It's real. Because like people ask and we stress. It's real. It happens. I know. So I want to make sure that we recognize that, and we come to a good understanding of, yeah, we're always wondering, what are we going to do with our life? And there's many of you who are this gen, and you're just like, thank God, I'm ready for this series because I'm trying to figure it out. So I think it'll be a great series for those of you who are this gen. But not just for those of you who are this gen. I actually think this is a major question we ask when we're kind of like in the middle of our life. We hit our late 30s, 40s, or maybe 50. We hit what Bob Buford said, or he called it halftime, where you hit that kind of middle of your life, and maybe you've been successful and things have been great, but you're searching for something of significance. And I think there's many of us that are in that late 30, 40, maybe 50-year age bracket, and we're going, what am I going to do with my life? I've been turning a wrench. I've been punching some numbers. I've been hitting a time clock all of my life, and man, I'm ready for something different. You might be sitting there thinking, I got to figure this out before life is over. So I think this series will be great for you, but not just for you, because it's not just this gen who needs to hear it. It's not just for those of us who are in halftime. It's also for those who have hit that point of retirement. Because when you hit that point of retirement, you've been kind of doing things all throughout your life, and then all of a sudden, maybe the schedule opens up a little bit, things change a little bit, and you find yourself asking that question, what am I going to do with my life now? Like, I don't want to just sit around. I don't want to just watch QVC all day. Like, I got to figure out something to do, right? And so we say, what am I going to do now? So I really think that this is a timely message, a timely series for everybody, no matter what age bracket you're in. Because what I believe is we all want to do something that matters. That we all want to do something that has worth. That we all want to do something that we can invest in and say, what I did with my time matters. So So that's really where this series is going, is we're going to challenge you to do something with your life that matters. If you're this gen, do something with your life that matters. If you're retired, do something with your life that matters. If you're at that halftime, do something that matters. And you might be saying, okay, Josh, great, but what is that? Like, what career is that? Like, do I need to go into ministry? Do I need to be a pastor? Do I need to go on the mission field? Maybe. Or maybe you need to be a school teacher. Or maybe you need to be a homemaker. Maybe you need to be a mechanic. Or maybe you need to be a construction worker. Or maybe you need to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it is. See, honestly, this isn't about your profession. It's about your attitude and about your life. So what I'm going to challenge you to do, and what our other pastors are going to challenge you to do, is with your life, don't waste it. I mean, maybe I can just say it that way. With your life, don't waste it. Don't waste your life. Yet too many times we are. Too many times that we're missing the opportunities that God puts right in front of us. There was a guy, he's a pastor, his name is John Piper, and he preached a sermon back in 2000 at one of the first Passion conferences to well over 40,000 students, and he told a story about two groups. It was two different not individuals. There was a husband and wife, and there were two friends, two ladies. And they had both retired, and these two ladies, they were trying to decide what to do with their life, and they decided at retirement, let's go on the mission field. So they went to a third world country, and they worked with people in poverty, and ended up one day while they were driving down the road in their car, they lost control of their car, went off a cliff, and died. There was another couple that they had retired, and what they decided to do with their retirement is they took their money and their investments, they went down to Florida, they got themselves a beach house, and they spent their retirement collecting seashells. And many people would look at this couple and say, that's the way to spend retirement. And these friends, what a tragedy they had. But when he preached that message to those students, he said, the tragedy is we think this is what life is all about. And when we go there, we often waste our life. So don't waste it. Because as a famous philosopher whose name is Maximus said, what you do in this life echoes in eternity. And a different guy who really was a great theologian, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he said this, that Jesus bids us, come and die. Come and die. See, the reality is that we need to recognize that everything we do in life matters. So use your life in a way that echoes in eternity. And the way to make a difference in all of eternity is to come and die. To give your life to Christ in a sacrificial way where you say, I'm coming and I'm dying. There was a guy, his name was Nicholas Ludwig von Zinzendorf. And here's what he had to say, and I'll read his quote in a second. That he was a very wealthy man. And as a wealthy man, he was trying to decide how to live his life, and he had a estate. He was over in Europe, and things were great, and he was trying to figure out what to do. And one day he was walking by a picture, and he saw Jesus carrying a cross. And then the inscription on the picture simply said this. It says, "This is what I've done for you. What will you do for me?" And he said that it just gripped him and it changed him. And he knew that he had all this wealth, so he started using his wealth to plant churches. He started using his wealth for missionary purposes. He started a prayer gathering at his house that ended up lasting for over 100 years. At one point in his life, this is what he said, and I just think the statement is so true. He said, I have but one passion. It is he. It is he alone. The world is the field, and the field is the world, and henceforth that country shall be my home, where I can be most used in winning souls for Christ. I desire only to preach the gospel, die, and be forgotten. Like, don't miss those words. I want to be most used. I want to be where I can be most used in winning souls for Christ. I desire only to preach the gospel, die, and be forgotten. And what would life be like if that's how all of us lived? If somebody said, what are you going to do with your life? If you said, I'm going to preach the gospel, die, and be forgotten. Most people would say, that's a tragedy. Jesus would say, no, that's a triumph. So I want to encourage us. Let's preach the gospel. Let's die. And let's be forgotten. Let's live out the words that Jesus calls us to live. Words like this that he said in John chapter 12. I tell you the truth, unless a kernel of wheat is planted in the soil and dies, it remains alone. But its death will produce many new kernels, a plentiful harvest of new lives. So what Jesus is saying is those who love their life in this world will lose it. Those who care nothing for this life in this world will keep it for eternity. That if I love my life, I'll end up losing it. But if I lose my life for Christ, I'll actually keep it for all of eternity. And then he goes on to say this in the book of Matthew. It says, then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? So the bottom line is Jesus says, come to me and die. Don't waste your life. Use it. And you might say, okay, Josh, how do I do that? Well, this is where I want to turn it over to our other pastors across all of our campuses. And they're going to challenge us and help us to understand how we can go from not wasting our life, but actually investing.
Golly, I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that. Thanks, Dad. So, yeah, let's talk about this on a little bit of a personal application side, right? There's a lot we can go into this. I mean, that is heavy, that is inspiring, that is challenging, right? And I think there's a great story that illustrates this well, and it comes from Matthew 25. And I'm going to tell the story and read parts of it. Just follow along with me here. So what's happening in Matthew 25, it's Jesus telling this parable. It's this story to get a point across. And in this story, there's this man that's going on this long trip. And he's a wealthy man. He has a lot of things. So he gathers some of his servants and says, hey, come here real quick. I've got a project for you. And as he brings his people to him, this is what it says as he talks to them. It says this. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. He then left on his trip. Now, he leaves on this trip. It's a long trip. It's a trip that will take a while. It's a trip that will have him away. So he takes off. And then these different servants, they go and take the money, and they do a few different things with it. The servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more bags of silver. Well, when the man returned from his long trip, he talked to this man and he said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Well, then we have the servant with 2 bags of silver. He also went to work, and he himself earned 2 more bags of silver. So when the man who was gone for a long time came back, he looked at that man and said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And then you have the third servant. And it says this in verse 18. "But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. And when the man returned from the long trip, he looked at him. And he didn't say, 'Well done, my good and faithful servant.' He said, 'You wicked and lazy servant. Why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it.'" You see, in the story, we have 2 people who were given something to do with it, and they used it for more good. Then you have a third guy who buried his talents away, buried the money away, buried the investment away. And the point of this story is that Jesus has given us things. He's given us talents. He's invested in us. And one day, he is going to come back. And when he comes back, he's going to ask us what we have done with what he has given us. That's a great question, right? It's an important question because we all have been invested in. The master, he handed out gifts to his servants. And he does the same for us as well. God's given us things. He's invested in us. He's given us time. Just by being here on this earth, that is a great investment. That is a glorious thing. He's given us talents. He's given us opportunities. He's given us passion. And what he's really doing by giving us all this is he's given us a life to live. Think about it. Most people, I'm generalizing here, but I do believe this to be true. Most people wake up in the morning, get ready for their day, go to work, come home from work, make dinner for their family, put their kids to bed, watch a few hours of TV, go lay down in bed because they know, hey, I'm tired from the day's work and I don't want to go tomorrow, so the best thing I can do is sleep. You lay there in bed and you dream in your head, oh, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. Or maybe it's, tomorrow I'm going to do this. Tomorrow I'm going to do that. In the midst of this dreaming, they stay dreams because you fall asleep and you wake up and you do the same exact thing the next day, right? And that's unfortunate because what if there was something bigger? What if there was something better? What if there was something more attractive than that for all of us? Because deep down, for every single one of us, there is something that craves this wild, adventurous, amazing life. And I want you to know that that incredible, adventurous life is possible for each and every single one of us. And I'm not trying to give us this like Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, E.T. the hip-hop preacher, if you want to succeed as badly as you breathe, then you'll be successful kind of motivational speech. And the reason I'm not trying to give you that kind of speech is because we don't need that kind of speech. Here's why. That kind of life is much closer to us than any of us realize. All you have to do is take that step of faith to move forward and say, God, I'm going to do what you are calling me to do. But you might be saying like, Clay, that's great, but I don't know if I believe I can do that. You don't believe in yourself, you have doubts, you have worries. Well, guess what? You might not believe in yourself, but God does. That's why God made the investment. That's why God notices you. That's why God puts these opportunities in front of you. That's why God wants you to have this great life. There is so much potential inside of each and every single one of us in this room, every single person watching online. There is more potential than we could ever imagine that lies in us. All we have to do is say, okay, God, I see you. I believe you. I am going to take the leap of faith. I'm going to take that step of faith. And when you look at your life, what feel like trivial skills quickly turn into life-changing skills when you pair it with purpose. God didn't give you the gifts that you have randomly. It wasn't like when he was creating you, it was like, oh, sugar, spice, everything nice, and oh, here, accidentally knock in that you're really good at drums. Like, that's not how he works. Now, God's given you a musical ability so that you could worship him, that you could glorify him and help other people find what matters by doing the same thing. I could talk about that from even like something as simple as you have a really good smile. That's not an accident. God created you that way for a purpose. And if we took the time to really believe that God has invested in us and then utilized it, we would be astonished about the life that we could live. We would be amazed by it. Is it daunting? Yes. When I read this story, I have to imagine when they were given those bags of silver, that was daunting. It's probably why the guy just buried it. He's like, this is the safest thing that I can do. It's daunting because it's going to take work. Just because you have potential, just because you have these skills doesn't mean you're not going to have to work for it, right? But if you take that work, if you notice that investment that God has put in you, say, okay, I'm going to put this to work, and I am going to invest in this life for God's glory, amazing things can happen. Which leads me to this next question is, where are you investing for him? Whatever God's given you, are you using it to bring him glory? Are you multiplying it? Are you investing it? Or are you burying it in the ground? Most of us live lives where we're afraid to take that risk. If you look statistically, when people are talked to at the end of their lives, the thing that they regret the most in their life is not taking the chances that they had in front of them. And I think, unfortunately, if we are not careful, that happens to every single one of us with our faith. These chances are available for us. Sometimes we don't do it out of a lack of respect for God, because maybe we just don't believe in him, or maybe we just haven't taken that step of faith to accept him as our Savior, or maybe it's just because you're not willing to risk it yet. And unfortunately, as I think about it, this is something that while people deal with at the end of their life, it's something that plays out in everybody's lives. And you heard it earlier. But I do really believe that this is a problem for this gen. Because what's happening is this gen can be so afraid of making the wrong decision that they make no decision at all, which then leads to that missing out on the opportunity. For example, like you could talk about what college you want to go to. You're just like, I don't know. You talk about inviting someone to a small group. I just don't know if I can do that. Maybe it's a career choice, as we talked about earlier. There's a lot of things we could go down this road with. And what's going to happen is even just a week later, a year later, 10 years later, you're going to look back on that moment and go, man, I missed an opportunity there. And I know that from personal experience. I'm an old 29. But sorry, guys. I feel old. Does that help? This beard ages me, you know, like it just happens, right? The reality is I can look back on like 20 different major moments in my life that I missed an opportunity. And I can regret those opportunities even still today, going, what if I would have done that? Man, I wish I did more. Because I look back at some opportunities that I had when I was 18, 19, 20, 24. And I could say, I had all the potential in the world to make a difference then. But here's the truth. Potential doesn't matter if it's not put into play. Just because you have potential means actually nothing. If you're a good athlete, but you're not on the team doing stuff, well, guess what? You're just a good athlete hanging out, right? You have all the potential in the world, but you're not making a difference. So take the opportunity, take the leap of faith, do something with your life. And it might look like a risk, but I would challenge you in your thinking. Is that really a risk? Because what's the bigger risk? Taking the leap and potentially failing, or spending the rest of your life wishing you would have taken that leap, wishing you would not have wasted that opportunity? Or maybe we can think about it a different way. Maybe it's thinking this way. Is the bigger risk doing what God tells you to do or not? Right? There's one clear right answer. There's one clear wrong answer. Because the risk isn't really a risk when you consider the returns. There's a song called Don't Waste Your Life. It came out like in 2010. It's by Lecrae. It was one of the first Christian hip-hop songs that kind of made a buzz in the music industry. And it was based a lot on the book that John Piper wrote and that concept and how he was wanting to just simply not waste his life. And I remember hearing it when I was a high schooler, and I enjoyed the song. And as we were preparing for this series, I couldn't help but think about it. Me, Sally, and Peyton were joking about it in the office. So I re-listened to it for our student ministry series. And I looked at the lyrics. And there was a set of lyrics that stopped me in my tracks. Because unfortunately, I think it's the American Christian experience that so many of us dread, but so many of us live. Here are the words. Your life isn't wrapped up in what you drive, the clothes you wear, the job you work, the color of your skin. No, you're a Christian first. People get to living for a job, make a little money, start living for a car, get them a wife, a house, kids, and a dog. Then they retire, they're living high on the hog. But guess what? They didn't ever really live at all. To live is Christ, and that's Paul, I recall. To die is gain, so for Christ we give it all. We hear that to live is Christ and to die is gain. And that makes us feel like we have to take this massive leap of faith, that we have to take this huge step, that we literally have to risk it all. But that's not really what it means. What it means is just use what's available to you. What's your circle of influence? We all have different ones. Yours might be the school that you go to. It might be the job that you work. It might be your family. It might be the shop that you work in. It might be the ball field. It might be that group of moms that you are friends with. Everyone has a different circle of influence, and that's a great thing because that means everybody has the opportunity to go and make a difference and not waste their life. So I've got to ask you, with your circle of influence, are you taking the opportunity? Are you not wasting the opportunity? Are you preaching the gospel? Are you helping people find what matters by connecting them to Jesus and others? These opportunities are everywhere. The opportunities are right here in our hands. Because God has said, here you go. This is what you need. This is what you can do. And we've got to decide, what are we going to do with what he has given us? Two of the servants did something with what God had given them, and they were rewarded. And one of them, he played it safe. He didn't risk it. And he wasted what God had given him. And he was turned away. We've got to be consumed with everything. with preaching the gospel to help people find what matters. Because at some point, we're going to have an account with the Lord. And he's going to look at us. Because like I said, Jesus is going to come back and he's going to say, hey, what'd you do? And I hope for every single person in this room, every single person that's watching online, every single person that's watching at J. Rubin, that you hear, well done, good and faithful servant. So, what are you going to do with your life? Another way I want us to think about this is from the perspective of Jesus. Because the story of Jesus is this. We've separated ourselves from him. He created us, life was good. But because of sin, we've pushed ourselves away from him. Every single one of us has. We've all made those mistakes. And there was nothing that we could do, no matter how good of a person we were, no matter how nice of a car we had, no matter how nice our house was, how good our family looks in Instagram pictures, it doesn't matter. There was nothing that we could do to get back to him. So what Jesus did, he came down from heaven to earth, died on the cross. 3 days later, rose from the dead. That changed everything. We talked about that last week. And because of that, we can now respond and say, Jesus, I'm going to choose to follow you with my life. And that's going to change your life. But I think about it this way. What if Jesus, inside of this series that we're talking about, what are you going to do with your life? What if Jesus looked at you today and said, what are you going to do with my life? Because Jesus died on the cross. What's that life worth? What are you willing to do? Where are you willing to go? How are you going to influence your circle? How are you going to help them find what matters? God has given you the talent. He's given you the opportunity. Don't waste it. Because that story is too good of a story to waste, right? That life is too good of a life to waste. And your life that you can unlock by giving Jesus everything is too good of a life to waste as well. So I'm going to challenge you today, simply, don't waste your life. And in a moment, we're going to go into a time of response and we're going to sing to God. And I'm going to challenge you, think about who you could influence. Maybe it's someone that you work with. Maybe it's someone that's in your home. Find a way to invest in them this week. Maybe what you need to do to help you do that is take communion and remind yourself of what Jesus did on the cross. Maybe you're hearing that story of Jesus and that he died for you and you're saying, I want the life that he can provide. Well, have a conversation with him right there at your seat. If you want to talk to somebody, we're going to have people in both corners of the Connect corners. We would love to talk to you and walk through what that looks like. Maybe you're going to take the step of baptism that you saw and go from death to life. We have an opportunity to respond today. Let's not waste it. You guys would do me a favor if you would like to stand with me. I'm going to pray and we're going to go into a time of response. Jesus, help us to not waste our life. Help us to not waste your life. Where opportunities are all around us. Help us to take that step of faith to follow you, to preach the gospel, to help people find what matters. But I know you have a great life for all of us planned. Lord, help us to live that life and not have any regrets at the end of the day. We love you. Amen.
So here is my
Every breath is an offering. My heart cries, these lungs sing over you, my worthy King. So let it rise, like incense. My whole life, a fragrance, every ounce. You're broken at your feet. Every breath is an offering.
Say